afternoon and welcome to the Ann Arbor Downtown Development Authority meeting, September 7th, 22. Thank everybody for attending. Kelly, can you do a roll call?
Sure.
Thank you.
Tyler Kinley.
Present.
Ji Hae Kim.
Present.
Micah Bartoni.
Present.
Milton Mahoney. Jonathan Massey.
Here.
Alex Deek.
Here.
Is it Micklon?
Yeah,
Is that
here.
it? All right. Darren McKinnon.
Present.
Quorum.
Thank you. Getting started. We need to approve the board meeting agenda. Do I have a motion to approve that?
Remove the CIP presentation. We're gonna.
So moved. Do we have a second?
I'll second that, Tyler.
Okay.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Motion passes. Do we have a motion to approve the amended board meeting agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor of approving the amended board meeting agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Next up, we have public comment. We have, first up is Alan Haber. You have 4 minutes to speak.
He asked during our July meeting.
And I'm here to talk about the construction on Catherine Street. It's been hugely disruptive to my business. During active construction, we've been losing about $2,000 a day in sales. Customers just drives them away. Let's see. Last night, the jackhammering began at right about the beginning of our dinner rush, leading to an exodus. Told that basically that it couldn't. I called the mayor. He suggested calling in front of the equipment, and then they would have had a bigger problems on their hand than losing an hour of jackhammering. I received only 3 days opportunity to comment or plan, and there's been no considered project next to us, which is about to start in 2 weeks, where they're going to demolish the rest of the block of Detroit Street and put up a 5-story condo. So now we are literally surrounded and strangled by construction. I've been talking to DDA executive director and others. Is that there's nothing really that anybody can actually do. Nobody actually. But I'm here to say if we continue to lose sales at the current rate, you guys feel like if you're in the business of downtown improvement, I feel like my restaurant is an example of downtown improvement. If it's an exchange that you guys want to make. I love my business. I'm not going to let it go down without a fight. The business to survive by putting constraints on the construction, lunch and dinner periods, which is specifically from noon to 3 p.m. and after. I guess that's all I have to say.
Moving ahead to the approval of July.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of approving the July and August 20.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Minutes are approved. Reports from city boards and commissions. Peter. Good afternoon.
A portion of the meeting was spent discussing the proposed concept. This is one block south of the DDA district. Extend our focus a little bit to the neighborhoods near the downtown. Replacing that 5-story building with an 11-story neighboring residences. While others spoke to the critical need to address the housing tomorrow, Thursday, September 8th, in the afternoon, and at a future planning projects manager. I was actually hoping to see it again today. I saw it at the CIC meeting a couple of weeks ago, and invited Amber to make that presentation. As the CAC's been looking for ways that this planning process. So beyond general satisfaction and approval of the DDA's recommendations for the DDA emphasis on investment in infrastructure, not services. Yet in discussion, participants suggested that this budgeted item, which has been more vision than reality in recent CIP cycles, a project working with the city to address some critical downtown solid waste issues, especially Street North Quad. That's a very serious problem, the use of downtown for everybody. CAC will continue to look for ways that influence the DDA and the city to improve that situation for all the users of State Street.
First, communications. Missing Jeff.
Here with you.
Great.
The first, excuse me, is about the board is aware that
The issue of staff classifications has been a subject of attention for well over a year. I think beginning in May of last year, especially around the classification of our manager of parking service manager. There's been a lot of back and forth with HR. I'm pleased to let you know that July, the city agreed to other DDA positions. So, want to share with you that on the 12th of August, the city held a working meeting with some representatives from East Lansing and manager, as well as Amber Miller and Maura Thompson participated in that day-long sharing of information and improvements, can be made. Okay. Also, last thing, board appointments. I know this is with you that the mayor has identified 3 potential appointees. He's waiting for some final feedback from our board chair. With a couple of them, and is looking to have a conversation. We put those appointments forward at the next council meeting, so that they would then be approved at the first council meeting in October. So that is
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. First is the executive committee. I can give a little overview, and I'll get some chiming in from others that have helped out. One thing on our agenda is a resolution to approve a joint city and DDA work session. This is something that in the past has been mandated to avoid having in-person meetings, and in a very official way, because it's in the contract and they want to make sure that that changes it from a mandated meeting to an optional meeting that do this formal process. So I will put forward a resolution to approve a letter canceling the Ann Arbor Downtown Development Authority City Council 2022 joint working session. So, thank you. Is there discussion?
These work sessions and with multiple city partners are happening. This isn't particular.
Any other discussion? Comfortable? Okay. All those in favor of the resolution, City Council 2022 joint working session, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. All right, motion approved. The resolution is approved. Next item, the 360 and HR services discussion. Micah, can you?
I believe everybody here was around for the out of the executive committee's purview. We went through the 6-month review process. We uncovered an official HR department or processes for DDA staff, and a non-traditional relationship with the city HR department that didn't provide much support. Week, Thomas International, who is using, and Riemann Financial, who is the DDA's new audit, offers a much more robust suite of both assessment services as well as ongoing support and recommendations. We had a discussion in executive committee about both of their proposals, and it was the recommendation of the executive committee that we move forward with Riemann. We feel it is a far more complete and professional tool that will give us the results that we're looking for. At this price point, it does not require formal approval by either the committee nor the board, but given everybody's involvement in the process previously and the interest of the board, we did want to bring it to all members for any discussion or opposition to the choice of Riemann as the HR consultant for 360, as well as an office HR assessment. Questions, comments, concerns?
When we had talked about this in executive committee, I had asked if it was worthwhile for us to seek out any other bids, and the recommendation from Micah and from Sarah both was that at this price point, and given how well Riemann did in terms of the interview and the conversation there, they felt it would not be very helpful to spend more time. That they felt very good about moving ahead there. So that made me feel good about moving ahead with this. That was my concern.
So again, since this requires no formal approval, it sounds like we have consensus and we can move forward with the agenda. And
Great.
Sarah, let's engage with Riemann for the suite of services we discussed.
Wonderful. The next committee meeting for the executive committee is Thursday, October 6th at 11:30 a.m. Moving ahead to the operations committee, Mr. Massey.
Hi. The operations committee did not meet in August. We canceled our meeting due to the unavailability of members. Our primary matter that we're bringing today to the board is an overview and update of the curb management study that is being performed by Walker Consultants. They're joining us virtually
Wow.
to give us that overview. And I'm going to hand things over to Jada.
So I'm going to give a brief introduction before I turn it over to our team at Walker. So as we've talked about in committee and at the board before, as far back as 2019, DDA staff really realized that our curb use downtown was changing. We were seeing increased need for passenger pickup drop-off, and loading needs were only increasing. So at that time, many communities were undertaking curb management studies to kind of address the issues that they were seeing and create systems so that they'd be able to respond to, future needs. We envisioned a study that would build on the work that already exists. So plans at the city, the street design manual that Amber creates, and something that would allow us to manage the curb in a more equitable and informed way. So we had planned on undertaking this work in 2020. For obvious reasons, we did not do that in 2020, but we're pleased to be underway with it now. As a reminder, the DDA manages downtown parking based on the agreement between the city and the DDA, and that includes lots and structures and also metered parking and curb uses within the DDA parking area. So that's kind of why we're playing a role in this discussion. Today's presentation is intended to be kind of a high-level introductory presentation. It's similar to what we've shared with various city staff groups, the Transportation Commission, and what we'll share later this month with the Commission on Disability Issues. So again, this will be kind of high-level intro to the project and where we are, and we'll certainly continue to keep the Operations Committee and the board up to date as we have more to share. So I will turn it over to Jim and Christy.
He's muted.
Jim, you're muted still.
All right, how does that sound? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I'm trying to do it through a phone and through the computer at the same time, but hopefully we're in good shape. All right, so I'm gonna share a screen here. Hopefully this works out okay. All right, hopefully everybody can see that.
Yes, thank you.
Great, okay. All right, so why don't we just jump in here? Again, thank you, Jay, for my introduction there. I am Jim Corbett, Walker's Municipal Operations Lead and Project Manager for this curb management practice. My 6th degree of separation, if you call it, with the City of Ann Arbor and Downtown Development Authority, is I actually used to run the Downtown Development Authority parking system probably 20 years ago in the early 2000s, representing the private operations team there very early on. I'm joined here today by my colleague, Christy Mancini-Nichols, who is Walker's National Curb Management Lead, who's worked on a lot of our research projects, is actually undergoing a number of these curb management projects locally, regionally, and on a national basis. But in addition to the Walker's team there, I guess I do want to point out that we are running this locally through Walker's Ann Arbor's office that's located on Innis Drive. Rick Klein is our managing principal, who unfortunately couldn't join us here today. But in addition to the Walker team there, I just want to briefly recognize the three groups at the bottom of the slide here. We're using the IBI group with offices in Southfield, Michigan to do the curb management inventory, which is already completed at this time. We're also partnering with two local firms, Greenway Collaborative to help on bike lanes and transit issues, and then Beckett Raider that will help with some more of our public outreach efforts that we're about ready to undertake right here. So just wanted to share kind of the depth nationally and locally of resources that we have working on this project here. I'm going to turn it over to Christy and let her kind of walk us through what the project is all about.
Thanks, Jim. So hi everyone, and thanks for having us here today. As Jim said, I'm Christy Nichols. I'm Walker's National Director for Curb Management. And I just got off of a call. We're working with the City of Seattle on e-cargo bikes. So there's just so much new happenings in this area. And when you think about curbs and parking, you know, cities have been working on managing parking, managing the curb for so many, you know, for decades. And now there's all these new demands on the curb. So it's exciting to work with you and the team to figure out what's the right strategy. So as Jim mentioned, we are working with lots of cities on curb management. We also have a curb management research and development study that we've been conducting for about 4 years now. And it started because, one, we wanted to analyze curb data. You know, we used to go out and collect parking data every hour or every half hour, and it just doesn't give you a sense of what's actually going on at the curb. You know, you may be able to count cars, but you can't pick up those quick deliveries or Uber and Lyft drop-offs, or, you know, the number of people on bikes or walking when you're just collecting data on the hour. So we wanted to collect some data too and to figure out like what is going on in this realm. We also heard from a lot of the cities we work with that vendors and new technology companies were approaching them and saying, we want to put cameras up, we want to put sensors in, you know, work with us. And a lot of these companies were startups. There's a lot of venture capital money associated with that. And for Walker, you know, we have a parking technology practice. We wanted to understand what is this new realm of curb management technology. We as a company remain neutral when it comes to vendors, but we needed to know, are these companies' products, do they work? Are they accurate? Will the companies be around in 5 years, even if the systems break down? You know, who will merge with each other? So we wanted to do some of those things to understand what is this new realm of curb management. So we've been working as part of the research project with the cities you see here, and I think most notably, we first started with the city of Sarasota, and just to talk about the sheer amount of data and happenings at the curb, we put up cameras like we recently did in Ann Arbor, and over 3 weeks, we had 18 cameras downtown collecting data, and the cameras counted data every 10 seconds. We collected over 13 million data points. It was just a sheer massive amount. We weren't even prepared for how much activity was going on. We analyzed all of that data, and we did it through different computer vision technologies, you know, even manual analysis. And once what we found was the data that we were collecting, like continuous data, didn't line up with the parking transaction data. We saw a lot more very short stays of less than 15 minutes. In fact, 30% of all the stays at the curb were less than 15 minutes. And the city just didn't even have that. You know, they thought most of the cars were parked for an hour or more. So that was a big finding. We also found there was just a lot more capacity, especially in alleys and in short-term loading zones. You know, the city was looking at, you know, when we collect data on the hour, for example, in a loading zone, if we just went out at 2 p.m., we saw that that loading zone was 80% occupied, or the loading zones on block were 80% occupied. So we, in our traditional way of collecting data, would have said there's really no more additional capacity in that loading zone. But when we looked at the data across the hour, so we had, you know, all 60 minutes across the hour, we found that the occupancy was actually only around 40 to 60%. So, because delivery trucks were coming and going, we were able to understand what's going on across the hour, so there's actually a lot more capacity. So those are just some of the practices that we are exploring. We worked with the city of Sacramento to install passenger loading zones and found that after installing the loading zone, taking meters out, painting the curbs for passenger loading, there wasn't actually a lot of passenger loading going on. People were still parking in the passenger loading zones. And the reason that we installed those passenger loading zones was because the city had heard anecdotally that there was this need for passenger loading zones. And so when we found out that people weren't even using them for passenger loading for Uber and Lyft, we said, well, that's a good finding because it helps us now set up a process for how you change the curve. You don't just hear from these anecdotal complaints or concerns that we need X type of striping at the curb. We really want to have a process in place, especially when you're talking about removing parking spaces and changing your revenue source. And that we're also working with the city of Omaha on smart delivery loading zones. So the city wants to charge for loading. So we're planning where those loading zones are going to be installed now. We're working with a technology vendor to install cameras that will look at license plate data and then know that it's either a FedEx driver or Amazon or whatever type of delivery company, and then we'll invoice those companies monthly. So that's going through, the ordinance is going through council now, and we're getting ready to start that plan. So just lots of different projects going on out there, but I think, this all points to cities, no matter their size, really need to think about how they manage the curb. So I went into the project plan for our study, and basically we want to build on all the great work that has been done, especially around people-friendly streets, the street design manual. There's been a lot of great outreach already with lots of stakeholders that we've been using to inform our urban strategy. As Jim's mentioned, we're collected data. We've collected the curb inventory that we'll get to some information for you, and then we have a pricing analysis, and we'll also conduct some pilots. So outreach is, like I said, there's already been a lot of outreach that's been conducted, and what we saw in that outreach was that there is consensus around the need for for more loading zones or for more, different treatments other than parking at the curb. So what we're doing now is, how do we figure out exactly where those loading zones should go? So after we have our data analyzed, we will be doing some very strategic outreach with business strategic strategy around how we engage businesses along this, and then getting their input and working through them to conduct pilots and to then inform our overall recommendations. And we'll be doing that through some surveys, some stakeholder meetings, and one-on-one meetings. So the curb inventory and activity data, we've finished and collected all of the regulations at the curb, and those are now more. It looks like the image you see here on the bottom left-hand corner of the slide. So essentially, I went around and we used the sign inventory. We went actually went around and verified all the signage and digitized that. So the reason we want to have this digital curb inventory is, long term, as the curb changes occur, we can now make those changes, and talk to companies so that, need to respond to those changes. So for example, there's a loading zone in parking zone in some place, and you want to change it to a loading zone. Well, at some point you'll be able to talk to UPS or to FedEx and say, this is now a loading zone. you can deliver here. And that'll all be done digitally through what's being developed now, these new technology standards. So this is why more cities are moving toward having this digital curb inventory, because you'll now be prepared and ready to talk to delivery operators, Uber, Lyft, whoever it is, about different curb changes, and then that will make the curbs more efficient overall. So we have that complete. We've also collected curb activity data in 2 locations so far, on Liberty Street and in Carytown. So we've collected a week's worth of data in both locations to understand what's occurring at the curb space throughout the day. And we have a lot of data there, and then we're conducting our second round of data collection in Southview now. So, or in 2 weeks. So we'll be collecting that data. We're finishing up the analysis of the first data collection in mid-month, and then we'll be able to report back on that analysis and figure out, based on that analysis, where we want to conduct some pilot areas. We're also looking at all of the existing policies, existing conditions, best practices, and I would just highlight here that we're looking at the curb in terms of equity. So we have, for example, cell phone data, we have census data, we have cell phone data. We're looking at what are the big origin and destinations that people are coming from and going to. So within the DDA study area, we know that there are a lot of places that are curb hotspots. So, can people access those hotspots, especially access those hotspots from many neighborhoods throughout the city? And then how do they get there? Do they have to drive and park? Is there a transit option or a way to bike to those locations that would be more affordable? So we want to definitely consider equity in all of our analysis and how we can improve equity and access to the curb. And then once we want to look at equity at the curb, so if there is a need for more loading space and the curb is now just, how do we make those changes based on the needs of physical considerations that we'll be taking into account as we develop long-term recommendations and curb typologies. We'll also be looking at a pricing analysis. We understand that changing revenue, so we want to make sure that this is a financially feasible study and take into account how do you think long-term about how you charge for curb space and who pays, drive and park. We want to think about access and overall. And as I said, we'll be conducting some pilots where exactly we should perform these pilots and how to set them up. So are they going to be some commercial loading zone pilots, some passenger pickup and drop off pilots? We're waiting for the data to come whether it's too cold. And then at the outcome, we'll develop a curbside toolkit. So this will be how different typologies of curb space based on operationalized. So what departments are in charge of structures. If you want to get a permit for commercial loading, how do you get who at the city or the DDA, what processes. So we want to detail the specific steps within this toolkit so it's like a really, all that information will be compiled into a curbside and final plan.
Okay, I think that's it. Are we, as far as the information we're going to share at this point, I know we were kind of time certain here, so I don't want to take up more time than necessary. So I think Jada will turn it back over to you, or if anybody has any questions at this point.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Happy to answer questions now, but like I said, this was meant just to kind of be introductory. As we have more results to share from the data, we'll certainly.
And we'll have more information from that data?
So I believe of September, early October, Walker will be sharing data that they've gathered from the camera collection. And internally, we'll start to talk about pilots and what that looks like, if it's something we can accomplish this year, what as a city. We will share that with the operations committee and then bring it to board through the pilots. We'll be letting you know, obviously.
Okay, second operations committee thing is a short update on electric vehicle charging stations. You'll recall that we have a joint project with the city to install 8. That project is complete. And within the fee of 25 cents per kilowatt hour will be implemented. Neutral, covering the cost of the electricity and the administrative cost as the project comes to life.
Great. Next meeting?
Oh, yeah, next meeting is going to be Wednesday, September 28th at 11 a.m.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Moving ahead to the Capital Improvements Committee.
Friday capital improvement plan overview. We were going to go over that today, but the state, just in relation to the CIP, the state DDA projects are required by city code to be included. The directions to finalize projects and timing. Staff recommended with minor timing adjustments to coordinate our work with the work of others. In addition, staff recommended small project additions, including a Miller Bikeway connection to West Park in the West Side neighborhood, and for the addition of 4 to 8 bike counters. The committee agreed with the recommendations and appreciated the graphs and data. But next month, the DDA board will be asked to recommend supporting the. So please review the presentation in your packet ahead of next month. Miller, Cap, any questions on the CIP?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So one of the things, I know we have a policy that we go a quarter mile outside for other items, but I'm wondering about, I believe this would be the first time we've ever done a capital improvement project outside our fiscal district.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if that's legal, if we've talked, are we okay with
Of it, but what we did discuss was the reasons for doing it and kind of the CIC meeting, which is next week. And I think that's a.
Well, I don't know if that's a question that anybody.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm happy to ask more questions about that, but,
Well, and then too,
I didn't know that. Yeah, go ahead.
we design of that is, meant to kind of work within this entire system of bike path, and we felt like it was, or, how it was presented at the committee meeting was that it was really necessary to kind of provide a continuous bikeway. But that sounds like it is within moving asphalt in preparation of installing the bikeway curb between First Street during the day to working as quickly as possible to open the 4th Avenue intersection. Comment about some of this, so we'll obviously look into that and take those comments to heart and have discussions with staff on best ways. So doing a great job managing everything. State Street construction updates. Construction continues. The contractor has prioritized work on the west side of State Street to allow businesses to resume outdoor dining as soon as possible. And this has been communicated to businesses, and staff are working closely with the State Street updates. Miller or State?
And state and
About everything we can to push this, and even our contractors are kind of, is that right, Amber, or eating some of these costs? I mean, there could
Well, it's
be-
my next question
Yeah.
is if we're pushed out 4 weeks and we're worried about conditions, are we gonna see the bid?
yeah, so, a couple, and we'll see what happens. And then in terms of the contract and how we can work through timing with the contractor, just a reminder, this is one of the projects where we're sharing, build some milestones and incentives into the contract, and they have not done that. And then there's also liquidated damages in the contract that they are late, they now incur daily damage.
Increased costs for, I don't know if there's.
We are approving additional costs.
Thank you.
Okay. The next capital improvements committee meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, September 14th at 11 a.m. Please note that
We have the Finance Committee update.
Yes, the August Finance Committee of the audit and details the responsibilities as well as the DDAs. In fact, just a quick reminder, that is Riemann, who is our new finishing up. Riemann will begin their work by October 1. That's a month later than the usual date due to the timing of switching the firms. December. The Finance Committee may schedule a special meeting in September depending on the status of that audit process.
Great.
The next Finance Committee meeting is scheduled for Thursday, October 27th at 9 a.m.
Great, thank you, Mike. The AA.
I'm convening a broad discussion in preparation of celebrating the city's bicentennial in 2024. People from city government, most of the meeting is from people outside of city government who want to do some organized, and we need to get organized, so that'll be the purpose. I believe it's the 22nd of this month. I think break this group on kind of how it's coming together.
Great. With the DDA, we'll be sad to see her go. I wish she were here to hear it, board member and friend. So I just wanted to say we'll be joining us soon. Yeah, exactly. So.
Hi, Peter Honeyman, 113 South Right here to meet with council. There are 5 new that will be sworn into office in November, and there will be 3 new DDA time. I think it's important that council and DDA, and so it's important that they get to know one another and what the issues are. So I really think here, after the new council is sworn in, before this will be appointed as liaisons to DDA. There are many reasons.
Have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of adjourning today's meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. Meeting is adjourned.